The corridor of the old Cleveland apartment smelled faintly of lavender polish and dust, that scent that clung to old wallpaper and memories. The lights buzzed weakly overhead, one of them flickering in an unsteady rhythm. Evelyn's heart moved slowly, clutching a brown paper bag filled with groceries, her frail hands trembling slightly from the cold that always seemed to settle in her bones this time of year. She had lived in this building for almost 30 years. It wasn't much chipped paint, creaky floors, a heater that coughed more than it warmed, but it was home. Her husband had died long ago, and the children they never had were only ghosts of dreams she didn't dare think about anymore. Still, she found comfort in her routines: morning tea, tending to her plants by the window, writing letters she never sent. As she turned toward her apartment door that afternoon, a sudden voice startled her. Evelyn. She looked up to see Mrs. Lawson, her neighbor from 2 doors down, a nervous woman with gray curls that seemed permanently unsettled. She was glancing up and down the hallway, her hands gripping her cardigan tightly. "Watch your house, Mrs. Lawson whispered urgently. "Someone's been watching you." Evelyn blinked. "Watching me? Oh, come now, who would bother with an old woman like me, Mrs. Lawson's eyes darted toward the far end of the hall. "I'm not joking. I saw a light in your kitchen window last night. You weren't home, and this morning your mailbox was open again." Evelyn forced a soft laugh, the kind you make when you want to brush away something unsettling. "You must have imagined it. Maybe the superintendent was checking on something." But even as she said it, her heart gave a faint, uneasy flutter. That night, as she made her tea, the apartment felt different, too still, too quiet. When she turned off the lights, she heard something faint above her head. A slow, deliberate creak. Then another. She froze. The ceiling, but she lived on the top floor. Pipes. She whispered to herself. Just the pipes. She tried to sleep, but her mind wouldn't rest. In the morning, her mail was already sitting inside her door, not on the floor, but neatly placed on the table. And she hadn't put it there. Evelyn stood in the middle of her living room, clutching an opened envelope, her hands trembling. Mrs. Lawson's warning echoed in her mind like a distant bell. "Watch your house." And for the first time in years, Evelyn felt something she thought she'd left behind long ago: fear. 2 weeks after the strange warning, Evelyn's quiet apartment no longer felt like home. The floorboards seemed to sigh differently, the air felt heavier, and sometimes she woke to find things not quite where she'd left them. The kettle would be turned slightly, the curtains half drawn, her reading glasses moved from table to counter. She told herself it was age, a slip of memory, a trick of the mind. But somewhere deep down, a whisper of fear refused to die. Then one cold morning, as she struggled with her grocery bags at the building's entrance, a familiar voice called out, "Aunt Evie." Evelyn turned, surprised and delighted. "Clara, my goodness, what are you doing here?" Her niece smiled brightly, brushing snow from her coat. "I've come to stay with you for a while. You shouldn't be living alone anymore." Clara was her late sister's daughter, all grown now, tall, graceful, with those same blue eyes Evelyn remembered from her childhood visits. Her laughter filled the apartment like sunshine, and for the first time in months, Evelyn felt less lonely. At first, everything was wonderful. They shared breakfast together. Clara helped with shopping, sorted through old boxes, and even fixed the leaky kitchen faucet. Evelyn often found herself thinking how lucky she was to have someone who cared enough to come back. But little by little, the sweetness began to sour. Her bills went missing. A small envelope of cash she kept hidden in a drawer vanished one afternoon. When she asked Clara, the young woman's face flushed. "You probably misplaced it, Aunt Evie. You forget things sometimes." Evelyn's heart sank. Was that true? She had been forgetting little things lately, hadn't she? Then came the phone calls. Late at night, Clara's voice floated through the hallway, low and urgent. Evelyn caught fragments. Yes, she's fine old, forgetful I'm taking care of everything. The words sent a chill through her. Why did she sound like she was describing someone sick, someone incapable? One morning, a letter arrived. Evelyn opened it slowly, her fingers trembling. It was from a law firm. The heading read, Power of Attorney Pending Transfer. The signature at the bottom looked like hers, but she had never signed it. She stared at it for a long time, her breath shallow. When Clara returned home that evening, smiling and humming as if nothing were wrong, Evelyn could barely look at her. Somewhere between the warmth of family and the shadows of suspicion, Evelyn realized the truth she had been trying to ignore. The danger inside her house had a familiar face. Evelyn didn't sleep. That night, the letter from the law firm lay on her nightstand, and like a snake coiled and waiting. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Clara's smiling face, sweet, innocent, rehearsed. How long had her niece been planning this? By morning, her heart felt heavy, but her mind was clear. She had to know the truth. That afternoon, she knocked on Mrs. Lawson's door. The older woman appeared with her ever-present apron and a look of concern. "Evelyn, dear, you look pale. What's wrong?" Evelyn stepped inside and for the first time let her guard down. She told her everything about the missing cash, the strange phone calls, the forged signature. Mrs. Lawson listened without interrupting, her brows drawing together as she poured tea into two mismatched cups. When Evelyn finished, her voice cracked. "I thought she loved me, Helen. She's my family." Mrs. Lawson's tone softened, but her eyes were sharp. "My husband was a lawyer before he passed. I've seen this before, a family taking advantage of trust. But you're not helpless, Evelyn. You can fight back. Fight back against my own blood." Mrs. Lawson leaned forward. "You can protect yourself. Start small, record her. Keep copies of everything she touches. Let her think you're the fragile old woman she believes you to be." Evelyn's breath trembled, but she nodded slowly. It felt strange, pretending weakness, when all she wanted to do was scream. That evening, when Clara came home, Evelyn acted just as before. She smiled faintly, let Clara handle the bills, even thanked her for taking care of things. Inside, her stomach churned. Over the next week, she followed Mrs. Lawson's advice. Every time Clara spoke on the phone, Evelyn discreetly recorded the conversation on her old smartphone. She began making duplicates of her financial papers, hiding them in Mrs. Lawson's apartment for safekeeping. Then one night she caught it, Clara's voice, clear as day, whispering into her phone, "Once the papers are signed, it's mine. She won't even know what happened." Evelyn froze, tears burning her eyes. It wasn't just suspicion anymore, it was proof. She brought the recording to Mrs. Lawson the next morning. Together, they made copies and documented every forged form and suspicious charge. The two women, both widowed and underestimated, became quiet allies. And as they plotted in that tiny kitchen filled with the scent of cinnamon and courage, Evelyn realized something she hadn't felt in a long time: strength. She had spent her life believing kindness was her armor. But now she understood. Even gentle hearts could wield steel when betrayed. The morning sun spilled weakly through the blinds, but Evelyn felt a spark inside her stronger than daylight. Today, the game would end. Clara had grown confident, thinking she had already won. Evelyn, on the other hand, moved with a quiet purpose she hadn't felt in years. Clara arrived cheerful as ever, her heels clicking against the worn floorboards. "Aunt Evie," she said brightly, "we'll sign the last documents today. Soon you'll be free to move into that lovely assisted home I found." Evelyn smiled, her hands folded calmly on her lap. "Oh, thank you, Clara. I couldn't have managed without you." The real estate agent, a serious-looking man with a clipboard, stepped into the room. Clara handed him the papers, expecting a swift sale. Evelyn's heart beat steadily as she waited for the right moment. Then she spoke, soft and deliberate. "Before you go any further, there's something you should hear." She pressed the play button on her phone. Clara's own voice filled the small living room, repeating her plans, her whispered triumph, her betrayal. The agent froze, staring at Clara, who went pale. What is this?" she stammered. Evelyn reached into her drawer and handed him a thick folder. Notarized documents, duplicates of every bank transaction, recordings, even a statement from Mrs. Lawson confirming everything. Clara's scheme had crumbled, brick by careful brick, under Evelyn's watchful eyes. "You set yourself up, Clara," Evelyn said gently, her voice steady. I only stopped, pretending not to see. Clara's lips trembled. She tried to argue, but there was no defense. The agent shook his head slowly, his pen now useless in her hands. When Clara left, she didn't speak again. Her suitcase disappeared from the guest room, leaving only the faint scent of her perfume behind and the memory of betrayal. Days later, Mrs. Lawson brought over tea, a triumphant sparkle in her eyes. "Justice tastes sweet, doesn't it?" Evelyn nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "It does," she whispered, but it wasn't revenge that warmed her. It was peace, the knowledge that her home, her sanctuary, was hers again. She made her final decision quietly. The house would not go to family who betrayed her. Instead, she donated it to a women's shelter, naming it the Heart Home. It would stand as a place of safety, of fresh starts, and quiet strength, everything she had fought for, distilled into bricks and walls and care. Some nights when the wind whispered through the old hallways, Evelyn would think of her late husband and smile. She had been tested, hurt and deceived, yet she had emerged stronger, wiser, unbroken. And as the city lights of Cleveland twinkled beyond her window, she whispered to herself, "No one will ever watch me in fear again." Her home, her heart, her life, finally hers.